You should hear me. Yes, perfect. Yes. So, a very good morning to everybody. Buongiorno. It's my great pleasure and honor to be with you this morning. We have known for quite long with Professor Duchan. I think my previous visit here was back in 2016, if I remember well, 9 years ago. And during these 9 years, robotics has grown a lot. And a big boost in robotics has been due to the contributions of AI. And often is the case that if you read any article in the popular media, and typically is article AI. AI has become pervasive. Like our kids in the school, they play with ChatGPT, they try to solve, the homework. And why is that? Because this is the case of any technology. When internet became popular, we observed the same thing. But what I was saying, if you read an article in the popular media about AI, often is the case that the iconic image of AI is a robot, is a humanoid. Almost to imply that AI and robotics is the same thing. It's like one thing. Well, I will be discussing these issues, but actually I will also highlight what are the common challenges across robotics and AI, but also what are the problems, what are the drawbacks to overcome to fulfill our dream. And our dream as roboticists is to make intelligent machines, to make robots for the benefit of humanity. And before I'm going to the actual talk, I just want to introduce briefly my university, my department, and my research team. Università di Napoli Federico II is the oldest public-like university in the world. Bologna, the alma mater studiorum, is older, but actually Bologna belonged to the church. So it was not independent in terms of, just the influence, the politics and things like this. So the Emperor Frederick II from Swabia, not very far from here, founded the university as a sort of school of science, of culture, back in 1224. And last year, we celebrated our 8th century, the 8th centennial of the university. That picture up there was taken on Roosevelt Island in New York. We had an event celebrating our 8 centuries of history with the rector and delegation, and this was an event in which we invited all the alumni of the university that are professional on the East Coast of the US. This was jointly organized together with the Italian consulate in New York, and also we have some premises at Cornell Tech. Cornell Tech is on Roosevelt Island in just across Manhattan from New York. But also engineering started first in Italy, in Napoli. Gioacchino Murat, he was a general of Napoleon army, and he was king of Napoli in the 18th century, and he founded the School of Bridges in 1811. Then Napoli was the capital of the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies until 1870, and then it was united to the rest of Italy. Perhaps if we had stayed an independent state, we would have won maybe many Champions League, because we would be in the competition of, as kind of the strongest team in the south. And we have 4 schools. The former Faculty of Engineering is now part of the Polytechnical School, and we have a number of research centers, 26 departments, and the year 2023 was a good year for Napoli, because after 33 years we were champions again since the time of Maradona, but also it was a good year for our university, because we have a program that is supported financially by the Minister of University every 5 years. The best 180 departments are awarded to be Department of Excellence. So our department was Department of Excellence already in the previous 5 years, but the turning point was that in 2023, 12 departments out of the 26 of our university were chosen as Department of Excellence. So according to the minister data, we are second in Italy after the State University of Milano, but we are first in engineering because 4 departments out of the 5, if we count the heads, the faculty and the researchers in these 4 departments, there's no other university in Italy that has so many faculty and researchers working in a Department of Excellence. These are the figures in terms of the faculty research staff, the administrative and technical staff, a number of study courses, and we have a pretty large student population. We have 80,000 students in the university. The population of the city is 1 million. So if we include another 4 universities that they are around, it's like 2 in the cities and 2 outside the city, but still in the province, it means that it's really a student town because it's like almost 1 out of 10, 1 out of 11 people just living in Napoli are students. 85 doctoral programs, a number of masters. We call them masters. Typically, if you say master, you think about the 2nd level degree, but actually we call it laurea. Laurea triennale is the bachelor's, laurea magistrale is equivalent to the master, but we don't call it master. Master are like +1 year, either after the laurea triennale or after the laurea magistrale. We have some specialization schools, and also we are very active with the so-called academies. For instance, we have the only Apple Developer Academy. Apple opened a developer academy in Italy, and they chose Napoli as a site. The department is very similar to this faculty because we have the mother. We are in information technology. We have the mother, which is EE, electrical engineering. Technically speaking, electrical engineering is part now of industrial engineering, together with mechanical, aerospace, chemical, naval, and things like this. But actually, all the information technology stemmed from EE. So culturally, we are with the EE people, with the electrical engineering people. And as I anticipated, we are Department of Excellence, and according to the Italian academic system, we belong to scientific sectors. So I am a professor of automatica, control, okay? There is no sector like robotica, because robotics is transdisciplinary, okay? And also, so there are faculty and researchers in our department belonging to 18, so it's like computer science, computer engineering, electronic engineering, electrical engineering, measurement, like engineering and so forth, okay? And we are the largest department in engineering, and we have a population of 6,500 students that's just studying at the 1st level, 2nd level, or like the PhD level. 3 research doctorates, 80 PhD students, 120 postdocs research fellow, 50 labs, many research projects and patents, and these are the 5 academies that are active, that they are managed by our department. One slide about Prisma Lab. Prisma stands for Projects of Robotics for Industry and Services, Mechatronics and Automation. It was founded now like 36 years ago, in 1989, if I remember well. And we are a total of 45 people in the team. And there are 10 faculty, so 3 full profs, 3 associate profs, and 4 assistant profs. And I realize, I'm 65, I don't want to say I'm getting old, but I'm growing, in the sense that I realized that besides the 3 full profs that are in the department, there are another 8 full professors in robotics in southern Italy that were my PhD students. So it means that I became full professor in 99, and then I was hired in 2000. It means that in 22 years, because the last one was hired, I think, in 21 or 22, 11 full professors from 11 PhD students of the Prisma team became full professors in Italy. Not to speak about all the associate professors and also like people working professionally outside, abroad. We got 25 European projects in the last 18 years, including 2 ERC grants, and partnership with a number of foreign institutions, companies, patents, quite several awards. And these are the 6 research areas in which we are active. They are alphabetical ordered here. Is aerial robotics, AI and cognitive robotics, dynamic manipulation and legged robotics, human-robot interaction, industrial robotics, and medical robotics. And there have been 2 startup companies out of the team. I'm not financially involved in the companies because I'm a man of the institution. And I have also a lot of professional engagements with the international community. You probably know that I was president of the IEEE Robotics Mission Society, the youngest in this history, back in 2008 and 2009. So I don't want to be biased by one startup company. So I really enjoy that our kids, our researchers, they start companies and they just grow professionally. And this is the cloud of the European projects. Of course, money, if I want to use a typical control metaphor, is a necessary but not a sufficient condition to do good research, right? And, but money is important, and thanks God we are European citizens, because the funding from the gross national product devoted to research in Italy is ridiculous. So I'm happy that I am a European citizen and there is Brussels. It's very difficult to get European projects funded. As we know, I mentioned the ERC. ERC is like 5% of proposals pass. And it's the same numbers with the project with Horizon, it's now Horizon Europe, you know, the current framework program. But we've been quite successful. It's nice. And the projects are clustered in 3 main clouds. And from the logos, you can guess what are the topics. But I want to spend a few words about the fun of robotics, because we had no background in aerospace engineering. And one day in 2009, I got a phone call from a colleague at University of Bologna, Lorenzo Marconi, control guy. He called me and he wanted to get me involved into this proposal, aerial robotics, iRobot project. I told to my folk, I said, no, but we don't know, we don't understand the dynamics of a multicopter. You know, it's not part of our background. But, you know, just like being in control and being in robotics, we can derive mathematical models, we can study, we can understand what are the issues, for instance, for controlling this kind of complex system. And I was right, because we engaged, we got on board the proposal, we got the proposal funded, and believe it or not, we have been granted 8 projects in aerorobotics in 11 years. Amazing. So this is really the fun, the excitement of robotics, that, you know, especially when you have good background in electronics, electrical, measurement, sense, computing, control, and things like this. So this is to tell you that sometimes there is a new application where maybe robotics apparently is of no interest, and then when you just come across, you find that there is a new opportunity to apply some robotics technology, which is also true for AI, by the way. And so that's why I decided, when I agreed the topic of today's talk, I could have talked about the technicalities of the 6 research areas, but we commonly agreed to give a sort of general talk. But before I do this, I want to just show you a brief video clip of 3 minutes of what we've been doing at the Prisma Lab. just got an idea of those 6 research areas in which we are active. And when I started teaching robotics back in 1990, I was a researcher, like assistant professor, and Professor Sciavico, my mentor to robotics, just opened this new course which was called Industrial Robotics, because this was the robotics of the 80s, right? And we started working on a textbook which was published in English, and then it was translated into Italian. And this, what you see in the picture, is the 3rd edition of the textbook that you might know, which also has been translated into Chinese and Greek. This is the modern Greek. I did my lyceum, my high school studies in scientific lyceum. And I had some regrets, because I think if you're born in Italy, which is like the classical culture, it's very developed, I always had some regrets that I didn't do classical studies. I did Latin in school, but not Greek. But at least I can say that I wrote the classical in Greek, although this is the modern Greek, it's not the ancient Greek. And it's important that the advancement of the field and the research achievements are reverted into the teaching. Right now, in our master program, in our Lara Magistrale program, we have more than 70 credits of courses devoted to robotics. This is a basic course, which is Foundations of Robotics, but also we have advanced robotics, like robot interaction control, field and service robotics. We have medical robotics. We have soft and bioinspired robotics. We have robotics lab. So it's many classes. And this is also being thanks to the advancement of research. This textbook was published in 2009, and there is some good news for you, because the new textbook is very soon to appear. Last week, we returned the galley proofs to the publisher, to Springer, and the new textbook is titled Foundations of Robotics. My mentor, Professor Sciavico, is no longer active, but also we were able to replace him with a very solid guy in robot control. Our friend and colleague from Sapienza University of Rome, Alessandro De Luca. I'm sure he was the former editor-in-chief, he was the founding editor of IEEE Transactions on robotics. And the new book is expected to be published anytime now, between, I would say, July and August, and I hope to have it, because in September I have to start teaching again, and I want to finally use the new textbook. We had the COVID pandemic, as we know, 5 years ago, and with COVID, everyone got interested to the possibility of distance education, web learning education. But I'm proud that I did it before COVID, because now I can say the old textbook, I recorded the textbook as 2 MOOC courses. I'm sure you know MOOC, Massive Online Open Course. And our Federica platform is the most active platform in Italy and one of the top in Europe in terms of courses, in terms of MOOC courses. And now the contents are available on edX, and just recently the course is available in Coursera. Although I think in 1 or 2 years I will have to record a new course with the new contents of the textbook. And it's nice, because I tell you, after COVID, I think just we learned the lesson, and the students, they do better. You know why? Because the students attending my classes, they have 5 media to study. Why? Because when they come to class, I keep teaching in the blended mode, so I record all the lectures, and for the students at home, or for the students that cannot come to their particular class, they don't miss it because they can connect, and they have like the video lectures. Then they have the textbook. Then I don't use the blackboard any longer. I use a tablet, and the scratch notes on the tablet, I save it as a file, and I post on the Teams class. So, and then also they have the slides, because I also have the slides, which I never use, but it's a sort of kind of trace of the class. So they have like 5 media, and the textbook, of course. So, and the output in terms of the ranks of the student after COVID has increased. So, I mean, just of course, we were suffering from the fact not to go to class physically, and that's important, you know, the physical presence, because, you know, it's, some people are connected, but I'm sure now I think I have much more motivation and adrenaline to speak if I see faces instead of seeing like people connected. During COVID, my memory was badly affected because I was giving a lot of talks, I was giving classes, but my memory was flattened. What I mean by that, that I was not associating mentally any kind of situation with the fact that I was physically in one place or in another place. So, you know, now I think we have improved. The textbook has been a lot of work, a lot of efforts, you know, just, and now with the new project. But professionally, my biggest project is by no doubt the Springer Handbook of Robotics, that I had the pleasure and the honor to coordinate with my scientific brother, Usama Khatib, from Stanford University. And this for me was also sort of a dream come true, because when I was, when I finished my PhD and I was hoping to become a research assistant to get a sort of full-time position in the department, I got the possibility, first after PhD, to go to Georgia Tech, where I spent my third year of the PhD program, and then to Stanford. But those years, I'm speaking between 86 and 89, I had the courage to refuse to drop out a chair like assistant professor with tenure track, but first at Georgia Tech and then at Stanford, for one person. And this person, you can easily imagine who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Dios, Diego Armando Maradona. Because it was the time that Maradona was in Napoli, and I had missed 1 year during my PhD. I have a season pass in the stadium since 1966. And I say, you know, should I go and become a professor at Stanford University? No, I want to become champion with Maradona. I want to win the Italian Cup. I want to win the UEFA Cup. I want to win the Super Cup. So life is sliding doors, as I tell my kids and my students. It's up to you to pass or just to step back. And it's good that to have as many sliding doors, because it's a matter of opportunities. But then I tell my affects that always follow your heart, always follow your passion. And my passion has always been football, soccer. So, and then I said, maybe I'm doing wrong. You know, and I had no money, I had no salary at that time. So, you know, just achieving this result with the handbook was a lot of reward. And I have a 2-minute video clip. Well, the sound probably will not be okay, but you will see the excitement and the fun of working on the handbook project. And also, the textbook was a lot of work, but basically the textbook, once you have a contract with the publisher, the deadline is you. And the success depends only on yourselves. The success of the handbook was depending on the community, because it's been a community effort. And this is a different story, because there were critical moments in which we thought that we would fail. was the very first book published by Springer that came out with this new technology, with an app that you see, the app recognizes the icon, and then you can watch the video inside the handbook. Either whether you're connecting electronically with the electronic version or with the physical book. Now, this technology has been used by other books, and believe it or not, I mean, just besides that Springer won the Prozia Award, which is for the best book published, is an award for the publisher, okay? But as I used to say, you know, it was not an award only for Springer, but also for the editors, for the authors, but more importantly, where is an award for the community, because they got the award for the category of engineering and technology, but also they got the general award. It's like the Oscar for scientific book, it's like for physical sciences and mathematics. So they only got this award once with our handbook. And the handbook continues to have like a few million downloads of chapters. The second edition was published in 2016, so now it's 9 years, but it's still a sort of milestone in the field. But this was like 9 years ago, and we had a workshop after the handbook in Heidelberg a few years ago with top scientists from robotics and AI. And out of this workshop, I started a new project. And the new project is also related to the MOOC courses. These books have just been published between March and May, and this is the Robotics Goes MOOC project. It's somewhere in between the textbook and the handbook, and also the contents are gathered, are organized according to what I believe are the 4 paradigms of modern robotics. These 4 paradigms are knowledge, design, interaction, and impact. And the nice thing is that the books are accompanied by MOOC lectures by the experts, by the author of the textbook. So you can integrate the reading of the chapters. Every book has 8 chapters, with the MOOC lectures, in which, you know, just they give a lot of, and also with the end of chapter exercises. So it's very good for the newcomers to robotics. And last November, I was invited by Professor Usama Khatib at the inauguration of the Stanford Robotics Center, which is the new center for robotics at Stanford, with a sort of financial general support from the Packard family. Packard is HP, okay, the Packard family. And I was there with my daughter, traveling to the US for, my daughter, she's a last year student of Master in Biomedical Engineering, and I was flattered to see that the mission of the center has been built around the 4 paradigms of modern robotics. Knowledge, when I say knowledge, I'm a control engineer. Knowledge embraces both the model-based control and the data. So knowledge is robotics and AI, okay? Design is not only the mechanical design. I saw upstairs one of the first robots that was built here when it was still Czechoslovakia by a professor. Of course, it's mechanical design, but design is a lot more. Design also includes the acceptability of this technology. Why do the people buy iPhone or iPad? Because it's a nice design, besides the technical characteristics, and they're willing to spend more. So design is a much broader concept than what we teach in these rooms, in these classrooms. Then interaction. Interaction is fundamental, because we have a technology that is good for the humans. So I will elaborate this concept during my talk. And last but not least, the impact of technology. That's very important. And impact includes also the acceptability of the technology and also the non-technical issues, like, for instance, the ethics, the legal, the sociological issues of this technology. So that's important to analyze in the impact. Okay, now let's get into the mood of robotics and AI. And I have collected a video clip which includes the funnest And the most exciting developments of robotics, the people in robotics, they would recognize most of the material I'm going to show you in this video clip. But for the people not in robotics, I think this is a short video summary of what has happened during the last 2 decades in robotics. The video is a short version of a longer version of the video that was published with the handbook plus some kind of updates. seen many applications of robotics, not only in the classical manufacturing settings, but also for like inspection, like flying robots, also bio-inspired robots, like insects, like birds, like fish, and all kinds of application scenarios. What is robotics? Robotics is defined in our community as the intelligent connection of perception to action. So I'm a control guy, so this is the typical block diagram scheme with the feedback principle. So if I'm thirsty, I just locate the glass of water. Maybe I know that I recognize whether it's full or it's empty. So I use some visual data. Okay. Then when I touch the glass, I just rely on the experience because I recognize that this is a glass. It's not a plastic glass. So I have to apply the proper amount of force. So it's like a contact. Okay. And there is an impulse from the brain, so this is the intelligence, and also there is a motion, and the motion is actuated by my arm with muscles, with bones, with muscles and tendons, okay? So any kind of system where you have this kind of intelligent connection of sensing, perception, to motion, actuation, is a robotic system. Now, what is AI? AI is almost, of course, includes cognition, because AI is computers, algorithms, mimicking the functions and the logics of the human mind. So, of course, AI includes cognition, includes intelligence. It's almost a tautology. But also, it includes perception, because when you use, for instance, Alexa, Gemini, Siri, you use like vocal data, use images, use video. So you use the sensing information, and this is perceived by some intelligent algorithms, like, for instance, ChatGPT and everything. Now, there's been a very nice study carried out by neuroscientists to understand the importance of the human senses, because this has also an impact on the robotic system that want to emulate the humans. And this study in the literature is known as the cortical homunculus. The dimensions of the sensorial organs of this homunculus are proportional to the importance of the senses for the human. So, of course, I think if I ask you, then you would say that vision is the most important sensor. It's true, but touch is equally important. So this homunculus has two big hands. So the challenge that we have is to understand what is the relationship between the cognition that identifies fully, wholly AI and manipulation. And so the motion, of course, is not only the hand, but the hand is iconic, because think about a child, actually think about an infant. An infant, in the first month of their lives, what do infants do? They touch everything. They explore the world. They try to grab any kind of object, and they try to bring this object to their mouth. And the parents get worried because they might swallow some sort of small objects and they can be suffocated. So you agree that the level of intelligence of an infant is not as developed as that of maybe a 1-year-old child that has learned how to stand up, or maybe of a 2 or 3 or 4-year-old child that has learned how to speak, and then how to read, how to just relate this kind of information. And this kind of challenge, this kind of dichotomy between body and mind has actually deep cultural roots, going back to before Christ, to the time of the great philosophers of Greek history. Aristotle was claiming that the human is the most intelligent living creature in the universe, and the human just uses their intelligence. Humans use their intelligence also to interact with the world. But a few years before, there was another philosopher. His name was Anaxagoras, and Anaxagoras was for the child, for the infant. Because Anaxagora, his famous claim was that human and this kind of infant children, they learn intelligence, they develop their intelligence through the senses. And this has motivated the modern study of embodied intelligence, embodiment. So let's concentrate now on the iconic hand, although the technology of the robot hands is not as well developed as that of the human arm, but still, it's what we use to interact with the world. Of course, we have used the limbs, we have used the arms, we use the legs, but it's the hand, it's the contact, it's the touch. So there is not only a neural intelligence, because a 3-month-old child doesn't have a sort of well-developed neural intelligence, but still explore. And there's some kind of peripheral intelligence concerned with the shape, so the design, the shape of the hand, the fingers, the phalanxes, and things like this. So this is the concept of embodiment. And let's go now live into this kind of matter of robotics with AI, and also the challenge of giving a body to AI. So this is the concept which in English is like fleshing out AI. March of last year, of 2024, I'm sure that some of you have seen this video. This was a video which was made public by OpenAI, the company of Sam Altman, ChatGPT. When OpenAI was founded 3 years earlier, Zaremba was the co-founder of OpenAI as a Polish computer scientist in US. He declared that OpenAI was tackling the challenge of cognition because the challenge of manipulation was judged to be too difficult. In 3 years, the perspective has changed because OpenAI partnered with Figure AI, with humanoid Figure 1, which is one of the many humanoids being built around the world. Now there are 200 companies building humanoids, and I'm sure you might have seen this video.
What do you see right now?
I see a red apple on a plate in the center of the table, a drying rack with cups and a plate, and you standing nearby with your hand on the table.
Great. Can I have something to eat?
Sure thing.
Great. Can you explain why you did what you just did while you pick up this trash?
On it. So I gave you the apple because it's the only edible item I could provide you with from the table.
Great. So, based on the scene right now, where do you think the dishes in front of you go next?
The dishes on the table, like that plate and cup, are likely to go into the drying rack next.
Great. Can you put them there?
Of course.
All right. So, how do you think you did?
I think I did pretty well. The apple found its new owner, the trash is gone, and the tableware is right where it belongs.
So this has been like the very first attempt to use language models without any kind of mathematical model of the physical system to develop a sort of physical generative AI. So it's been a change of paradigm. Of course, in terms of the robotics performance, that humanoid is not as fancy as, for instance, the humanoid just doing the flip, like Boston Dynamics, just is like, it's less advanced. But what I want to share with you this morning is that now there are like a lot of efforts and also a lot of money put into this challenge, especially in the US, okay? Of course, we can discuss now about the new administration cutting off funds to universities, to science, to culture, but still, the Silicon Valley can count on a big amount of money from venture capitals, from investors, like business angels, and also in Asia, and in particular in China, is happening a similar phenomenon, although in that case it's a governmental phenomenon, because most of the money in the books comes from the government to the companies, to the institutions, to the universities, to the research centers. And as I declared like 2 months ago in an interview with a technical magazine, I believe that in Europe we are experiencing a sort of sandwich effect between this kind of two pushes, two giants. And often is the case that like US companies or Asiatic companies are buying the technology developed in Europe because we don't have a high risk, high gain mentality to invest into some sort of ventures whose return of investment is not so clear. I'm sharing this with a number of European colleagues. But anyway, this is the key. Other than wasting time in stupid, typical kind of academic quarrels, whether AI is one of the enabling technologies of robotics, or whether the people believe that robotics is one of the applications of AI, the truth, as always is the case, is in the middle, is at the intersection of robotics with AI. And the development of a physical artificial intelligence is much harder than the normal artificial intelligence because the physical motion is involved, and this creates a number of challenges, and the blind use of AI robotics can be potentially dangerous. So that's why, together with a friend and colleague, Antonio Bicchi from University of Pisa, we wrote a comment on Nature 4 years ago in which we were just describing the transition from 3 decades of development of information and communication technology, or if you wish, just IT, information technology, into a new dimension that we call interaction technology. And the word interaction was intentionally briefed into the acronym IAT with 3 letters, not only to disambiguate from information technology, but also to stress the importance of the physical action. And this interaction technology is very much characterizing the transition from the 4th industrial revolution, Industry 4.0, to Industry 5.0. In this, on the left, you see what are the main differences between 4.0 and 5.0 in terms of labor, systems, products and services, supply chain, and networking. And this is the triangle that illustrates what are the 3 knots of Industry 5.0. On the bottom, you see 2 words that are often abused by the politicians, I think: resilience and sustainability, which they're very important for Industry 5.0 and robotics, of course. But in my humble opinion, the most important knot is on the top. Is the human-centric dimension of the technology. One common stereotype is that because of technology, we get lazy, that we are all the same, and there is no way, it's the opposite. Because what technology does is to elevate the average standard. It's a lot more easier to travel with a navigator. Now, we can translate any text with our phone. I remember the very first conference I went to in Japan, International Conference on Advanced Robotics in '85. The Japanese towns don't have names of the streets. So there was no Google, there was no Google Maps, And there are the names of the buildings, and the writings were like in kanji characters. And I was not lost. It's a lot easier now to travel. You as a translator, just is like, so technology elevates the standard, but then it's up to the humans to properly use the technology. So the paradigm of Industry 5.0 is to promote talents, diversity, and empowerment. So a few words about sustainability. There's been a nice study carried out by a data analytics company. This study is pertaining to the US, but I believe also it is true also in other geographical regions, that the better use of robotics and AI could result in an impressive reduction of CO2 emission. And this reduction has been estimated by 2030 to be a saving of 18% of the US CO2 emissions. And these are the 5 sectors in which were considered for the study, in which we could have savings of CO2 emission. So superficially, you might say, if you do a search in ChatGPT, this is energy consuming, because there are some servers around the world that they are running and they are consuming energy, and they require air conditioning and things like this. This is true, but thanks to this, is like the second time you search, then just there's an added value that in the short period is not appreciated, but if you project this into a sort of time perspective, you have a saving of energy and then a reduction of CO2 emission. Speaking about resilience, I just mentioned COVID earlier, and thanks to COVID, I say thanks to COVID because of course, if you are in science and research, you must be optimistic. You cannot, I don't understand, of course you must be critical about what we're developing, with a sort of consciousness, but I say thanks to COVID, we have been able to reshore some productions that were delocalized in countries with a sort of low economy, because now we can use robotics and AI technology, and we can develop new sectors of productions that were relocated abroad in the past years. And the cobot is one example of this kind of plug and play concept. But in my humble opinion, the technology that is very resilient and is entered really the market, in my opinion, is being the exoskeletons. We are not yet at the level of these tools, but you certainly remember that exoskeletons were proposed in labs, typical medical labs, for therapeutic reasons, to help, like you saw in the video, you saw some wearing exoskeletons allowing a patient hit by a stroke to stand up and walk, or also, like you saw, prostheses and things like this. But now exoskeletons are a commercial technology. You can buy not a toy, but a professional exoskeleton now for less than 5,000 euro. We're not yet at the level of that technology, and exoskeletons are used by anyone that has to do some kind of physical work, being like maybe a porter, like, for instance, like in logistics, like operators, they use exoskeletons to reduce the risk of musculoskeletal diseases on the column and to attain like more ergonomic postures. It could be used by, for instance, by civil protection operators. If there is a catastrophe, a collapse of a building or an earthquake or something, people with exoskeletons are empowered and maybe they can rescue the people. They use like by surgeons in operating room. So it's a technology that is very, very resilient, because you can attain, doing some physical work, some more ergonomic postures. I characterize the transition from ICT to IAT, but of course, the communication is still important. Now 5G is everywhere, and you think that thanks to 5G, you have an extreme mobile broadband, and also you have a massive machine-type communication. But for a robotics perspective, the most important feature, the most important knot of the triangle of 5G is the ultra-reliable, low-latency communication. Why is that? Because one way or the other, depending on how developed this technology, there will be a delay in the channel if you want to remotize some operation. The question is whether this delay, namely the latency, can be made small but also constant. Because if the latency is guaranteed to be constant or slowly varying, then you can compensate for the latency, and then you can control people and machine globally on a kind of global scale. And this brings me to one concept. I'm going to show you a short video clip. This is a commercial video clip made by one software company, Qualcomm. I don't have any royalties, any interest with Qualcomm. As a scientist, I selected this video clip because it really captures what is happening across robotics, AI, and 5G.
This is a time of rapid progress, when precision robotics, advancements in AI, and the capabilities of 5G can accelerate innovation, revolutionize logistics, and enhance our daily lives. When robotics, AI, and 5G work in unison, new possibilities emerge. This is the invention age. It starts with Qualcomm.
So why is this important? Because, with 5G allows us to achieve some results along that trend. But in my opinion, the big step forward will be carried out with 6G technology that is being tested currently in Korea. So what is the goal? The goal is when we had the COVID pandemic, we learned the smart working. And we were able to work remotely, but we were exchanging voice, images, and videos. There was no physical smart working because we were not able to operate a machine remotely because of the physical context. I have directed the Center for Robotic Surgery in the Polyclinic in our university from 2016 to 2022. And during the COVID, the training of the surgeons had to be stopped because the surgeons could not move, could not travel, and it was impossible to do the training of the surgeons remotely through a sort of communication channel because we don't have this kind of technology yet. So the goal of developing 5G, or maybe I should say 6G enabled tactile internet, goes through the transition in parallel to the transition from ICT to IoT. We have to develop a new technology. It's not only the internet of data, the internet of things, but it's the internet of skills. And the internet of skills is not the skills of the human category, it's the skill of Ferro, the skill of Bruno, the skill of Rubica. So it's the individual skill that has to be supported by this technology. And the Americans are great in creating sort of new names for when we say like click, this has been adopted in the modern language in every language. I don't know how in your language you say, in Italian we say cliccare. So we make a verb is like, and the concept of the digital twin, gemello digitale, digital twin. But actually, if we want the digital twin to emulate some system, including the actuation, including the manipulation, including the physical dimension of AI, we have to develop a phygital twin. So the Internet of Skills technology is one enabling technology for developing the phygital twin, and the goal is to achieve a bidirectional haptic control with compensation of the latency, so with perception of zero delay in such a way that we can do the physical smart working, so we can connect people and machines not only locally but also globally. And this brings me to the final part of the talk in which I will be discussing what are the challenges involving robots and humans. This is in Italian, but this is an excerpt from a very nice book I read during my teenaging time. I was affected positively, I think, by reading books by Isaac Asimov. It's like the major, just as like with the fundamental rules of robotics. And when I was in high school, when I was a teenager, I could not imagine that I would become a scientist, a professor of robotics. For me, it was like science fiction, a very far future to come. And I read this book, 6 Memos for the Next Millennium. I think you can understand what it means. But if you think about knowledge, conoscenza is knowledge, and you think about robotics, the knowledge as a sort of anthropomorphic dimension. That's why you think about the sort of humanoid. And so our imagination of an intelligent machine cannot be anything but a sort of anthropomorphic. And this is captured by a sort of tight interaction of robotics with life sciences. Like I made the example of the neuroscientists, but the people in biomechanics, the people in psychology, they're looking at us, the roboticists, as a sort of gymnasium to implement their algorithms, their theories, their conjectures. Whereas we, the roboticists, are finding inspiration from nature, from life sciences, and this is the case of biomimetics. This is the case of bionics. So the new dimension of robots, as also you saw in the video, is not only to replace humans in dangerous or expensive jobs, like for instance the drones for inspection and maintenance of civil infrastructures and industrial plants, but also to become some human companion. So this is the new dimension of robot to enhance and improve not only the human work, but also the normal life. And so this will be used not only in factories, but also in the hospitals, in our homes, on the farms, on the freeways. And if we look at the annual data published by the International Federation of Robotics, there is a sort of document that is published every year in early November. These are the 5 areas in which the new robots that we call service robots are expanding. And the 2 largest areas are in transportation and logistics, no surprise, but also in hospitality. You know, I have now some relationship with people working in tourism, because like robot receptionists, but also in the food industry is kind of developing this kind of technology. And then, of course, other areas like agriculture, like professional cleaning and medical healthcare. Medical healthcare is lower because of the need of certification. Each time that you want to certify and to patent some kind of technology takes a sort of longer time. And when we speak about robots and humans, we cannot ignore what are the ethical issues of those that design, they build, they implement, and they use this technology. The final chapter of the handbook is devoted to these issues that they are known in the literature, in the community, as ELSE issues from the English preposition. ELSE stands for ethical, legal, societal or sociological, and economic issues of the robotics technology. And if we want to address the cohabitation of humans with robots, we have to analyze what are the fundamental human rights and the moral duties corresponding to them. So the role of ethical reflection is not only to just award the discussion between technology optimists, as most of us in this room, I think, and technology pessimists, but rather to analyze the problem under the lens of the concept of equity, merit, equality, freedom, and privacy also. It's not only, we are tracked by these devices, we are tracked, just, of course, you can set off, some kind of tracker, but also when we will wear an exoskeleton, also we will be physically tracked. Okay, so these are important issues concerning freedom and privacy. And typically, this is another stereotype. At the World Economic Forum that takes place the first week of February in Davos, in Switzerland, I believe in 2018, there was a statement, because of robotics and automation, 5 million jobs will be lost. This was pure demagogy, because the history has just taught us that it's the opposite. Otherwise, jobs would have been lost with computers, with internet, And in fact, there was a nice study published on The Guardian like 2 or 3 years ago, that Amazon, the year of the COVID, I think, 2020 or 2021, they made the business 5 times bigger. And during that time of observation, they installed 500,000 new robots in their logistics line. And people thought that 500 jobs had been lost. Was not the case, because in the same period of time, they hired 800,000 new employees, doing some work which is maybe more dignified than a work of a porter that sometimes don't have time to go to the restrooms. Because when you press Amazon Prime, there's a sort of value chain, and the object, the item has to be delivered the following morning to your home, and there are people that just have to work without sort of interruption. So it's a sort of turnover. So the issue of technical unemployment because of robotics and AI automation is a false issue, because it's just changing the jobs. And one issue that is very important is how much autonomy do we want to put into our system. Now, if you ask me, like 4 or 5 years ago, that I will be one day in a city, in a traffic, in an autonomous car, I would not believe that this would be possible. And I had been in Parma in 2013, so 12 years ago, together with Alberto Broggi. He's a computer scientist, a roboticist also from Parma, to try the autonomous cars in the Parma traffic, because he developed this technology, VisLab. VisLab is a company. VisLab was bought by Albarella, which is a company belonging to Google. So this is one proof, one demonstration that the big investment come either from the West or from the East. And here in Europe, we just we are both. KUKA was bought by Midea. Aldebaran, the previous company, was bought by SoftBank. And just like I was last November when I was in Stanford with my daughter. I had to try Waymo.
Ecco la nostra macchina che sta per arrivare, sempre la Jaguar. Siamo qua al Pier 39 ed è una macchina con la targa X3 che dovrebbe stare per arrivare. Ecco, ha visto che le persone hanno finito di attraversare e arriva qua. Ci siamo? Eccoci, eccoci. Bellissimo, incredibile. Aspetta un attimo. Good afternoon, Bruno. Start right. Eccoci.
Heading to Golden Gate Bridge Vista Point. Please make sure your seatbelt is fastened. For any questions, press the call support button to
And it's
the
amazing, just as like, and the very first ride, you're screaming because you say,
C'è un po' di traffico.
I was so excited.
Chi sta facendo il time lapse?
Was excited, but just as like, but then when you take 4, 5 rides, it becomes normal. It's like you take the driverless train to connect from one terminal to the other in the airport, or like some of the tramways. Of course, these are not on track. It's in the traffic with cars, and it's a very reliable technology.
Ed eccoci sempre su Waymo al centro di San Francisco. Guardate, stiamo attraversando Folsom e al volante della Jaguar c'è un computer. Viva la tecnologia, viva la scienza, viva San Francisco.
And also my daughter recorded a time lapse, of the ride, and you can appreciate, of course, it's accelerated, just is like, it's really amazing. But I tell you, just as like, of course, I was so excited, but also there was a friend of my son with her boyfriend, so it's about 28-year-old, in the same area, and the 2 kids, they were scared of riding this technology because what if I want to stop? And say, no, I prefer the human driver. Are you sure? Human driver can be tired, can be under drugs, under alcohol, or maybe just kind of dirty, or just doing crazy, or maybe just chatting and messaging and being distracted. So, I don't think that humans are necessarily better than machines. Of course, we want to distinguish humans from machines, But the key is to take the good side of the technology. And when we speak about robots and humans, you also saw in the video, you saw some kids suffering from autism, just interacting with now with the small robots of Aldebaran. And the area of social robotics is very important. And you think that robot is a machine, and you think the robot is a neutral. It's not, because a social robot actively interacts with the human. And also, there is a lot of attention about how social robots are designed to communicate and to interact with the human. And thanks to the intelligence, thanks to the learning technique, a social robot can develop a sort of personalized interaction with the human. So, like, how often do we read about caregivers, or like maybe teachers in kindergarten, in elementary school, just beating like the kids or the elderly people? This is often in the media. And you think about replacing this with a machine. What's the problem then? Then you think that because it's a machine, maybe you can react and you can treat the machine. I'm kind of extremizing. I'm trying to provoke you. So you can treat the machine because it's a piece of plastic. It's not a piece of other, because now everything is in plastic or maybe in titanium, okay? And then but the machine also can be more or less friendly with the correct user. So this is a new dimension. And the answer to this kind of issue cannot come from the faculty of electrical and information technology. This involves the people, the experts of human sciences. So this is really the excitement of robotics. So going back to the social robots, they provide appropriate emotional, cognitive, and social cues to just facilitate or encourage learning from the user. And this is a lot nicer than smartphones and tablets. I have colleagues working with people suffering from Alzheimer, from dementia, and I tell you, just as like the elderly people, they like much more to interact with a sort of animated machine, because it's really kind of bi-directional communication in which they tend to treat the robot as a sort of animal pet. They give a name to the robot like they would give to maybe a sort of dog, animal. And it's much more stimulating, the interaction, than what you have with smartphones or with tablets. So, I'm sorry, this is often not correctly animated. I don't know why. I have to fix this. This is not the animation. Okay, now it's the correct animation. I don't know, sometimes it just just scrambled. So the empathy in social interaction is very important. This is probably a concept you heard about. This is the concept of the uncanny valley. This was a Japanese philosopher, Mori, that just show how the transition from the industrial robot, he call it toy robot. Actually, let's think about service robot. You know, a robot maybe biologically inspired robot. Then, before having a sort of avatar of the human, there is a sort of drop of the emotions of the human interacting with the robot. This is the concept of the uncanny valley. And I want to give you an example. I was, last September, I am chairing the advisory board of a company in France, the scientific advisory board. The company's name is Enchanted Tools. It was co-founded by two guys. One of the guys is Jérôme Monceau. Jérôme Monceau was the developer of Pepper in Aldebaran. Okay, so he has this new company. And they show me the so-called Mirokai robots. And these are the two robots. And those have been designed to help hospital patients and will soon assist in hotels and customer service. Like, this is the area, the segment of hospitality, of robotic technology for hospitality. So I visited them last September, and I'm going to show you just two videos. Look at these robots. These robots have a sort of humanoid-like appearance, but think about the uncanny valley. intentionally, they have the head of an animal, of a Bambi, of a deer, not of a human. Why is that? Because it was intentionally a design choice. That's why I underline the issue of design, just because it's a kind of new dimension. The Japanese have designed robots to be anthropomorphic or like zoologically inspired because they are syntheists and they believe that machines have a soul, and the appearance of the machine to be acceptable by the humans must be like a human or an animal pet. But you might get to a point in which you will not distinguish. There is this Japanese scientist, Ishiguro, that made some kind of replicas of himself, of his wife, of justice. You have to distinguish. I don't know if you saw the movie Ex Machina, in which at a certain point, the one person is not sure whether he's interacting with a human or a machine, and make a sort of cut to see if there's blood, spilling out of the body. So the design was intentionally to make a sort of a hybrid, because this creature is clearly not equal, because it has a body of a child, maybe, and the head of a Bambi, okay? And it's also, it's run with the ChatGPT, and I was in their lab in Paris, and the guy was asking, it was pure interaction, do you know some famous Italian roboticists?
Yes. I know some famous Italian roboticists like Siciliano.
Now, look at this. This robot moves the ears, okay? So this is like, think about Pepper. I'm sure that you have seen Pepper, and also you have seen in the video. Typically, this kind of social robots, when they don't interact, they're idle. They're like this, okay? This robot also, in interacting, moves the ears. There is an expression in Neapolitan dialect that if I want to catch your attention, we say, a pizzerecchie. This is Neapolitan dialect. It means like, just make sure that your ears are listening to what I'm saying. So this movement of the ears creates a sort of social empathy, because you are communicating physically, not only visually and verbally, through the images, through the cameras of the robot, and through the voice. But there is another great design choice. Other than having typically one caveat of humanoid, of bipeds, is stability. And that's why they're not yet ready for this technology. That, like some of the humanoids, they have like a mobile base and maybe the body of a humanoid, because with wheels, it's easier, okay? Now, they intentionally chose a ball bot. A ball bot is like a sphere. So the robot you saw, and you will see also in the next video, has also some sort of circle ring around to avoid falling. And the nice thing is that this robot, while it interacts with the human, it's always moving. Now, you're basically steady now, but of course, Italians, they use a lot of just languages, when they speak. But actually, when we communicate only also physically, because we move. Now I'm talking, I see some of you are doing like this. So it's a part of communication. It's part of communication. And the intentional movement of this robot with a ball bot is also increasing the social empathy. So, yes. Do you like? And also this, compared to Pepper, is also with force control, with compliance control. So you can just interact. So I think this is a great idea, because the motion of the ears, very few humans can move the ears. Yeah. But the motion of the ears is very informative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
If you have a robot there,
yeah, this is a very interesting analysis.
Yeah.
Because humanoid you wouldn't expect, but this is informative. Great.
It's good.
Okay. Ferro, Professor Duchon also showed me some nice drawing made by robot, and he even gave me some nice drawing made by robot. And I remember his booth at the Maker Faire in Rome, in which robots were kind of doing some drawing. But I also believe that the role of aesthetics as concerned design and acceptability of robots is very important, because this is a pervasive technology. If this technology has to become ubiquitous, the robot to share the space with humans must be aesthetically pleasing as well as safe and reliable. So what are the paradigms of this? The robot must also, in order to enjoy the civil coexistence with the human existence, should be, these are the paradigms inspiring: symmetry, harmony, beauty. And there was this nice book published by the curator of the Modern Museum in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. There was a very nice exhibition I visited in 2017, and it's a very nice book with really beautiful pictures. This is called Hello Robot, Design Between Human and Machine. And the key role of design for robotic technology is becoming part of everyday life. Also, we want this to be developed in a sort of responsive way so that the technology becomes acceptable by the humans. So, just wrapping up, of course, I'm a techno-optimist, and I had the honor of writing the lemma in the Dizionario Enciclopedico Treccani. Treccani is the most prestigious encyclopedia in Italian, and this is just the incipit of my lemma. I just quoted Leonardo da Vinci, who was a hell of designer, architect, engineer. He was a kind of polyhedric man in Italy, and this is his original just statement in the Italian. This is not the modern Italian, it's a sort of kind of old Italian. And I'm going to read this with you. When I published my first textbook, I had an invitation at the Technical University of Prague, and I was there. Michael Balaszek, Professor Balaszek, had invited me, and I went to Visegrad, and I brought the very first copy of the textbook published in the cemetery on the Moldava River for tomb of Karel Čapek. This was I think 1993, I believe. Yes, 1993. And actually, when I was asked to write this, it was in 2020. So it was exactly 1 century, 100 years after the entry of the word robot into our lexicon. So this is the final paragraph of what I wrote. This is in Italian, but I translated in English. The challenge, at the same time, the opportunity that the world of research will have to represent, is related to future scenarios in which robotics will become an interactive means to help improve conditions of life. In this vision, the robot will be able to, so it's the concept of interaction technology that I talked about this morning. In this vision, the robot revolution will be able to help reassert the least artificial feature of our world, our humanity. So let's trust the machines like Waymo in San Francisco, so we can delegate part of our tasks, part of our action to machines, and this will help, will improve, will facilitate our life. And if we rely on this technology, we gain more time to express at the best the creative part of our intelligence, which is the natural intelligence with the emotions, with the feelings, with the sensations, with the fate. Okay, so this is my vision, that thanks to this kind of merge between robotics and AI, we are transiting towards a sort of what I call a renaissance, a sort of technology humanism. And in order to achieve this goal, we must have a very open-minded attitude. Because I feel I'm now in robotics since 4 decades, since the time of my PhD. And I do believe that all the core methodologies and technologies of robotics can be considered to be well assessed. The new progress, the new advancement in the field will not be among our community. That's why I enjoy, of course, I attend big conferences like ICRA, IROS, and other conferences, but I have much more motivation to go to a conference of science philosophy, a conference of sociology, a conference about the legal aspects of the technology, about ethics. That's the kind of conferences at my age, with my experience, I like to go, because we have a number of emerging areas. The list on the left is by no way exhaustive: animation, biomechanics, haptics, health, machine learning, neurosciences, sensor network, sustainability, virtual prototyping are only some of the disciplines that have a strong intersection with robotics. And the new advancement will not lay inside ourselves, inside our technology world, but it will be at the crossroads with the other disciplines. And this is what will boost, will feed the scientific cooperation. And only then, perhaps and wishfully, robotics technology will become ubiquitous, distributed, and embedded into our smart environments. Thank you very much indeed.